Okay, so welcome everyone to today's career profile series from Net Impact Boston. My name is Lawrence Wilson, and today we are joined by Cecilia Hermawan. Welcome, Cecilia. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Lawrence. Nice to be a part of this.
Fantastic. I guess just to sort of kick off, do you maybe want to introduce yourself quickly and tell us a little bit more, a very sort of condensed version of your career so far?
Yeah, my name is Cecilia Hermawan, the founder and CEO of Vico Style. Vico Style is a vintage fashion company. It's direct-to-consumer startup. Our mission is to help Americans be sustainably bougie on a budget by recloseting beautiful vintage pieces that may otherwise land or end up in landfills. In terms of my career, I started my career post-college in the apparel and footwear industry. I used to work for a company, a big retail company, and manage their stores. I also used to work at an off-pricer and at a footwear company. Both are based in Boston in merchandise allocation. Then I used to work for a startup that's helping e-commerce retailers with their fit and sizing solution. And then fast forward, I spent my career in B2B tech sales. And then now I am full-time building and growing my company.
Fantastic. Brilliant. So talking about your company, could you maybe tell us a little bit more about the sort of motivations, what was the reason that you decided to start Vico Style?
Yeah, Pico Style started out of my own pain point. I'm a single parent, and when I was pursuing my MBA part-time, I was also working in B2B tech sales. I realized I had to pay for my own tuition, which was a hefty amount. And I thought to myself, I just have to be better with my money and how I spend my money. And my friend introduced me to secondhand goods. And one day I fell in love with this vintage cape. And then I thought to myself, okay, I've been stopped by a lot of people out on the street. I really love the sustainability component of being able to reuse what already exists. And styling it in a way that's versatile. I might as well start my business. That's how I started Vico Style. I started by selling online, and then I went to various pop-up markets in the Boston area. I saw a lot of traction. Then as I was wrapping up my MBA, I thought to myself, well, I either do this full time and just focus on growing my own company, or I could do it on the side. And I thought to myself, I had the FOMO. I might as well do it full time. I'm not going to wake up one day and regret that I actually didn't do it.
Oh, fantastic. That must have been quite sort of intimidating, I suppose, a bit nervous to kind of take that leap to go full time to start on your own.
Correct, especially as a single parent, since I don't have anyone that could support me and my daughter financially. It's just me.
Fantastic. Well, I'm glad that it's been going so well anyway. So sort of, I suppose, thinking back on your early career, I mean, you mentioned sort of working in tech sales, mentioned working for other apparel companies. I mean, that must have been, well, did you find that was very helpful when it came to Vico Style?
100%. So from taking the different components, right, working at this big apparel and footwear companies early in my career, I learned how to do the basics of merchandise allocation. You don't overbuy, allocating these kinds of products to whichever stores that fits the DNA of the store, right? And then after that, I work for a startup that helps with the fit and sizing solution. I was an early employee. I was employee number 17. And by the time I left 7+ years later, I was employee number 150. There were about 150 employees. That really helped me to be scrappy and how to be creative with like limited budget. And being able to build and manage teams that really helped to hone in on my leadership skills. And then moving on to sales, that's really, really helpful for me to actually be able to close, right? So any conversations that I've had with potential partners, vendors, right? Or landlords, those require some negotiation. So definitely a lot of this experiences combined collectively has been very helpful for me as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, fantastic. And I suppose what we've heard about the positive things, I suppose. So what have been the kind of biggest challenges to you so far with starting your own company?
Yeah, so money is definitely a challenge, right? It requires capital upfront, and how to best allocate resources. What are like prioritizing, deprioritizing? What would I get, the most bang out of my buck? That's another one. But time. So both time and money are not infinite, right? It's not infinite. And with time, I've always struggled with like, oh my God, I didn't get to accomplish X, Y, and Z today. But I am delegating with the help of my team members, and there's so much that I can do within a day.
Yeah, fantastic. Cool. Okay, so I suppose that sort of covers the story of your company and where it came from. But I guess in terms of sustainable fashion in general, the idea of sustainable fashion as an industry, have you found over the years that the ideas around bringing sustainability into fashion, have they become more prevalent and more sort of easily accepted over the years?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Lawrence. I think a lot of people or consumers are smarter these days. Consumers are being more responsible, being aware of, okay, how are we going to make a better world and be smarter consumers in a way that, anything from how is this going to make an impact for the environment, and how is this going to also impact the workers that are within the ecosystem? Is it a fair wage? Are people working at a sweatshop being treated fairly, and so forth? All of these things combined has helped consumers to be, to think in a way that, yeah, I would like to be able to shop sustainably and be responsible individuals.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. And is that something you take into consideration when sourcing clothes for your company? I mean, all of those things combined, like you say, the conditions of the people who made the garments, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so for something to be considered vintage, it has to be at least 20 years old or more.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I do not know oftentimes the history of each garment, but it really warms my heart when I see garments with the union tags, because then I know that those workers were compensated fairly. They were able to earn a living wage. And that's really great for me to be able to see those labels. And in the vintage world, or people that are very familiar with vintage, those those garments are priced a little higher because there's some, conscious shopping, if you will, from the consumer's end.
Mm-hmm.
As far as everything else, I just know that those things already exist, right? And instead of potentially disposing those items in the landfill, or it's better off for those items to be recloseted to new homes.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
That's fair enough, I suppose. Yeah, it's already there, so let's keep using it. And I suppose, do you have any advice for people? I mean, you mentioned the union label there. I didn't know that. That is very interesting. If people do want to make more sort of sustainable choices with their shopping, is there anything you could advise people to look out for? I mean, are there any sort of particular brands out there that are doing well in this field?
Yeah, there's a fun fact. I don't know if everyone knows, but there are things that gets donated. So about 20% of things that gets donated to thrift stores, when they're not sold, they get actually disposed to developing countries. So that's a fun fact that a lot of people aren't aware about. And what happens is that when those things are not sellable, they just get shipped off. We don't see that in the US because everything looks so pretty. But if you see images or videos of mountains of trash, textile waste, unfortunately, we don't see that in this country, but it goes elsewhere. And that's also not good.
Mm-hmm. No, I didn't realize. Yeah. So I guess sort of aim for secondhand when possible, and use garments as much as you can until the point where you can't use them anymore, I suppose.
Yeah, and mending, repairing, and take a really good care of your belongings. That's what I've been preaching to my 8-year-old. Clean your handbags, redistribute them to others that may need them within the community. I'm a fan of everything that, for instance, I'm not able to sell because I got things in bulk and they're not all vintage. I would give them to my team members. They get the first dibs, or I would redistribute them to organizations that could benefit from them instead of just dropping them off at the thrift stores.
Fair enough. Oh, fantastic. That is really interesting to know, actually. I didn't know anything about that. Cool. All right. So I also wanted to touch on the role that education has played in your career. I know you mentioned an MBA earlier. Have you found that that's been sort of useful to you when it came to working in your current company?
Yeah. First of all, you don't need an MBA to become an entrepreneur. I am an outlier having an MBA and becoming an entrepreneur, in my opinion. Second, it has been helpful and has honed in my leadership skills. A lot of the skills that I gained from my work experience, by the way. But doing my MBA, the fact that I did my MBA, it gave me a little bit of a push and courage to start my own business. But at the same time, it more so than anything, it's the leadership skills that I've gained most from it. How to become a better leader, how to help my team members and coach them to grow. And most importantly, I think this has been like a pain point for a lot of companies is it's one thing to acquire talent, but it's a different thing to get them engaged and retain them. So my goal is it's not playing the short game. It's not just trying to get team members, but how do I help them grow as individuals, and how do I retain them?
I know you're currently recruiting at the moment, right? So if anyone's listening who's interested, then I think we'll have some extra information in the next Net Impact newsletter. Anyway, so brilliant. Okay, I guess a final kind of couple of questions, really. I suppose one would be, do you have any advice for those who are sort of thinking of perhaps taking the leap? I mean, I know that setting up your own company, entrepreneurship is a quite terrifying thing. So yeah, do you have any advice for those who are thinking about perhaps setting up their own company?
Yeah, I'd say start small, right? Start small and just, I'm a fan of saying, let me say it in the PG-13 way. GSD is get stuff done. You know the word for it. Get stuff done. Like literally just do it. And then when you see something, for instance, I spotted a white space in the market. I come up with problem statements. I came up with 3 problem statements, right? And then with those problem statements, then I formulate a solution. This is how Vico Style is going to be different than the other players. And these are our unique value proposition. And from that point on, if you think you have an idea that's viable with legs to stand on, don't be afraid to take that leap of faith. In my opinion, I have the win aversion. It's like, well, what can I feel like I have no hesitation to just start this, because what if I don't start something, and what if I don't pursue it? I don't want to live my life with regret. So that's probably the biggest advice if somebody's trying to pursue their aspiration or their goal.
Oh, fantastic. I think that's really, really nice to hear, definitely. All right then. So I guess was there anything else that you wanted to share with the kind of Net Impact community? Any sort of events or news or anything special you've got coming up?
Yeah, just shop sustainably and try your best to live sustainably. And I live sustainably, bougie on a budget, and that's just my mantra.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Cecilia. We really appreciate you coming along to share your experience with us. For those who are interested in finding out a bit more, is there somewhere they can go to get more information on your company? Is there a website, or do you have a store?
Yeah, there is a website. It's called www.vico.style. Follow us on Instagram, on TikTok. We have great tips on how to be sustainably bougie on a budget. And we have a storefront right now in Cambridge and Harvard Square. It was a former ATM, so it's our micro vintage store. And then we're opening up another one in Boston in April of 2023.
Fantastic. And an ATM, that is properly micro, isn't it? Brilliant. All right. Well, thank you so much, Cecilia. And yeah, hopefully everyone can, well, not everyone will actually make it into the store because it's in an ATM, but hopefully everyone can make it down there. Thanks very much for coming along, and hopefully we'll hear from you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.